Welcome everyone. I see already 34 people connecting, and we're gonna wait a few more minutes to see how many of you join us live in this webinar session entitled Fashion Forward, a journey to the digital product passport. And actually it's gonna be a journey, and I'm happy to have also with me Massimo Brandellero, founder and CEO of the D-Factory, Carolynn Bernier, who is the Consortium Coordinator at CIRPASS, and Margaux MacNeil, who is the Content Manager at Certilogo and eBay Group. I'm gonna be your, let's say, moderator today. I'm the head of sustainability at the D-Factory. And with us, even if not live, there are two key partners that supported us in the development of the Digital Product Passport Blueprint we're going to present you today, which are Soprasteria and For Sustainability. Soprasteria, who's, let's say, our key partner. He's an European tech leader recognized for his consulting and digital service expertise. And For Sustainability, who's a sustainability framework. We're going to speak a lot about framework. So let's say the right place for them to be with us. We wait just 2 minutes more, and then we're going to start. On the meantime, while we are waiting, I just show you two information on how to interact and make questions during this live traceability masterclass. There is the chat option on the right, where you can actually ask for the questions and technical problems you may have. While on the left, you see the questions about the content that you can make throughout the entire webinar session, but we're going to reply only at the end of the webinar. Plus, if we do not have enough time, we're going to still leave you the time afterwards to make your questions and reply you in the thread. I already made a little bit my own introduction. I don't want to take too much time because I want the others to actually kick off this discussion because it's a very hot topic today. I'm just coming from an Appearance Sustainable Textile Conference from Fashion Innovation Forum in Amsterdam, and traceability and digital product passport have been actually the key words throughout the entire panel discussion and the entire day. So, but we still wonder what these two words actually do mean and what they do actually apply concretely into action from an European standpoint and legislative standpoint. So I'm happy to have Carolynn today from CIRPASS, who's going to support us in understanding the wider European overview and the legislation and how the digital product passport and traceability will actually come concretely into action in the upcoming legislation and the legislation that have already been approved. And on the other side, trying to support you to understand which are the greater opportunities that these two words can offer to any business. It's not simply a matter of complying with the legislation, but it's really a new opportunity that digitizing items and products can offer to the business as a whole. So what we're gonna try to do today is to concretely test these two concepts and see some use cases and active practices that have been implemented from us, from the D-Factory and from Certilogo. The first masterclass, we've been speaking about the mapping module. We had as a key partner, the public affairs manager from Global Fashion Agenda. There's going to be next masterclass to come, and we're happy to invite you also to the next one. I'm representing today not only Data Factory, but Y Hub as a group that include Data Factory as a traceability platform on one side, and Process Factory on the other side as a consultancy and sustainability agency that support brands, fashion and luxury brands in measuring the supply chain impact through the impact platform. So let's say many platforms, but one single objective, which is supporting the supply chain in transitioning towards a less impactful business and more traceable processes. Today, as a group, we're working with 56 brands from many different countries, realities, and outline with over 80,000 suppliers mapped globally. Our objective and the reason why we are creating this masterclass is to engage more and more brands in this process, not only in tracing their supply chain, but actually in starting new practices for concretely sharing and transparently sharing the information they trace on the products, the materials, and the processes. So today with me, I'm gonna kick off the first introduction and panel introducing Carolynn Bernier, who's gonna support us in understanding what the ESPR legislation stands for. What is the Digital Product Passport? So we have been hearing hundreds of different definitions of what is the Digital Product Passport. We're gonna ask you, Carolynn, to support you on that and providing an overview of what's the concrete scope of CIRPASS project.
Okay, thank you, Martina. You can hear me correctly? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, super. Okay. So thank you very much for this invitation. The definition that we propose in CIRPASS is the definition of the European Commission for what is a digital product passport. So we're talking about a structured collection of machine-readable data with predefined scope and agreed data access management and access rights for specific pieces of information, the specific data elements that is conveyed through a globally unique product identifier embedded into a data carrier and therefore is accessible via electronic means through this data carrier. So the scope of the data of the DPP is information related to circular economy and sustainability. So this is for the regulatory aspects of the digital product passport. But beyond this regulatory view of the DPP, we also share the same vision that was presented by Martina just in her introduction, that the DPP is not only a regulatory tool, but it can be also used to support new business models and so additional non-mandatory data. And therefore, we think that within CIRPASS, we developed this vision that the digital product passport is an information system for the circular economy. By information system, I use this term similar to how you would say the World Wide Web is an information system. Next slide, please. Okay, so the digital product passport is mentioned in a large number of European regulations and directives. The most important of which are the battery regulation, which was adopted actually before the Eco Design for Sustainable Products regulation, which luckily was adopted by Parliament in the recent days. A trilogue agreement was reached in December of 2023 on the ESPR. So ESPR will become part of published at the official journal of the European Commission, probably in around this summer of 2024. And so the ESPR is a framework regulation defining what is the scope of the future eco-design regulations for different categories of products, and it also institutes the digital product passport as a digital means of communicating this product information. like I said, it's mentioned that the DPP is also mentioned in other regulations. So the battery regulation, which was actually adopted before the ESPR, but is also mentioned in the Critical Raw Materials Act, the Toys Directive, uh, a number of other regulations such as the Construction Products Regulation. So the DPP is a tool that will apply in a cross-sectoral manner. Okay, what will be sector specific will be the delegated acts of the ESPR, which will institute specific rules and specific information requirements for each sector. So at this moment, you must be aware that there is a delegated act of the ESPR that is being prepared by the Joint Research Council of the European Commission, specific to textile products. And therefore, hopefully that we will have a draft of this future delegated act, hopefully in this summer, maybe at the autumn of 2024. Next slide, please. So we already know what the European Commission wants for this information system that is the digital product passport. So they want an open system such that there is no single proprietary solution that is able to issue and manage these digital product passports. The granularity itself of the passport will be defined by the specific delegated acts for each sector, and it will either address an actual product model or a batch or even specific items. So this is for the regulatory aspects of the granularity of the passport. Just to give you an example, in the battery regulation, each battery has to be uniquely identified. In terms of access rights, we know that not all data in the passport will be freely accessible. For example, the freely accessible data for consumers will be part of the passport, but the passport can potentially contain restricted access data for specific uses in order to protect IP rights, for example. A very important concept is that of liability. So, who is responsible for issuing the digital product passport? Issuing in the sense of making the data available either on their own web servers or using the services of the DPP as a service provider to issue the DPP for them. And it is clear, the Commission has clearly defined who will carry this liability and is the economic operator that is placing the product on the market for the first time that will have this responsibility. So this could either be the importer, it could be a manufacturer, it could be a brand. This will depend on each sector because each sector is organized slightly differently. And there will be some tracking and tracing identifiers that will be required as part of the information model of the digital product passport. Next slide, please. So, as I was saying, in terms of timeline, the ESPR should be published this summer in the official journal of the European Union. And in parallel to this, since the Commission is working in parallel on many delegated acts for many different sectors, so at the same time as they are working on a delegated act for textile products, they're also starting work on a delegated act for steel and iron products, etc. So in order to give visibility to the different sectors, they will publish a working plan, and they will also publish a means for gathering input from stakeholders that will be concerned by future information requirements for these future delegated acts. So, and this working plan will give a visibility over a number of years of the focus sectors that will be the focus of upcoming delegated acts. Because the Commission only has a limited bandwidth in terms of creating new regulations, and so they cannot legislate all sectors simultaneously. So they have to do this in a sequential manner. So hopefully the actual delegated act for textile products should be published, so adopted in January 26, which would, giving a year and a half for implementation delay, may mean that DPPs may be required for textiles and shoes, for garments and shoes in the summer of 2027. So this is extremely short timeline. For batteries, it's even worse. That means February 2027, DPPs become mandatory. So this means that we really have to come up with very good solutions very quick. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is CIRPASS? CIRPASS was a project that is now finished, that was funded by the European Commission. And the purpose of the project was to help the Commission and the wider stakeholder community mm, gain a common understanding of what this cross-sectoral DPP should look like. And they asked us to focus on the system aspects, so aspects of the IT systems that could apply to all sectors, because the Commission wants a single DPP technical solution and not a different solution per sector. And so our goals were, as a project, were to be a neutral and objective source of information for the European Commission, but also to all DPP stakeholders. And the way we did this was by gathering as much information that we could from as many sources as possible, and in listening to as many people and solution providers as possible. We did a lot of listing of pros and cons of different approaches, trying to be really neutral, as neutral as possible. We tried to gather as much feedback from external stakeholders on our proposals and our reports, and more generally trying to piece together this puzzle, which is the digital product passport. Next slide, please. So in terms of architecture, so here I'm only going to talk about IT. I'm not going to talk about the content of the digital product passport for a specific sector, because you would know this. I'm a computer engineer, so I do not work in the textile industry. So you will know this much better than me. So what CIRPASS has done is has proposed a vision for the DPP system architecture that has been proposed to the community, to the Commission, but also to the Senelec standardization group for the DPP system. And this vision consists in a number of very important points. We envision the DPP system as not another platform. There are thousands of platforms that exist, okay? But we envision the DPP system as a decentralized network of platforms, okay? Each platform is typically crafted to the needs of its industry, its users, etc. So they're all pretty much unique. And the idea is not to replace all of this. So we want is a platform that enables the maximum reuse of legacy IT, legacy data models, and legacy actual data. So the focus is not on platforms and technical solutions. The focus is on semantic interoperability. Okay, because what is needed is to make it operationalize the exchange of data across sectors and across industries. Okay. So, what we propose to the Commission is an architecture that accommodates both regulatory and non mandatory aspects of the. In order to open the DPP to beyond regulatory uses. Okay. Of course, the architecture has to accommodate both static and dynamic data, and public and private access data. So these are two requirements, technical requirements for the DPP system. And in our proposal, what we propose is to use the semantic web technologies, which exist for the last 20 years, that are very well deployed, very well known, in order to use the concepts of linked data to facilitate this semantic interoperability layer. And this way, we have a system that can both accommodate legacy uses, legacy systems, legacy data models, and can grow because this technology is extremely flexible, like all web technologies, and can grow and accommodate future needs. Next slide, please. Right. So this slide introduces some concepts that I termed. So what I termed DPP 1.0, 1.5, and 2.0. This terminology was proposed by myself. I observed with time that it tends to create some confusion, but let me try to be clear on what I mean here. DPP 1.0 is the DPP as envisioned by the European Commission. So the DPP 1.0 starts to exist when a responsible economic operator has the mandatory obligation to issue a DPP for the products they're placing on the market. So this may be garments, shoes, steel bar, whatever, a battery, whatever. So, and then the use of the DPP is downstream from that moment. So data is accessed by consumers, but the Commission really wants the DPP to be used in B2B context in order to enable new circular business models. Okay, so this is basically the focus of what the European Commission wants. Of course, if we want to link this DPP in the future to sustainability claims that come from the supply chain, we understand that we have to go a little bit further than this. But this is beyond the scope of the European Commission because the Commission cannot legislate what happens mostly outside of European borders. So all of these supply chains. Okay. However, the DPP system architecture that as envisioned by CIRPASS should be able to easily enable this connection of upstream with downstream. And we're actively working towards this. And of course, this DPP 2.0 is an iteration of 1.5 in order to make this integration, the upstream downstream integration, seamless. Okay, next slide, please. Right, so just to say that so as I said previously, the CIRPASS project has ended. We're still publishing our final deliverables on our website, cirpass.eu. Hopefully at the end of May, we'll have finished with that. And also I'm happy to announce that the CIRPASS 2 project will start in May as well, and it will focus on DPP 1.0, 1.5 with a large number of pilots in several sectors, including the textile sectors. I think that's it for me.
Yes, thank you, Carolyn, for being very, very clear and specific to the point. Because I think I don't want to go into the questions because I would like to ask you a lot of questions again, and I think also people from the public have more questions for you. But I think two key points are fundamental to introduce the digital product passport blueprint that we as the D-Factory, together with Certilogo, with the CIRPASS and for sustainability created and crafted. The point is that the DPP wants to be, and CIRPASS has been born to create an interoperable system to define the architecture, the IT architecture for making all the systems that are out there able to speak together and to connect the dots. So what we have been trying to do with this digital product passport blueprint is to actually outline the different functionalities that can then define and be used on the DPP to share different data and enable different opportunities, because the content of what is going to be in the DPP has not been defined yet and is going to be part of the ESPR broader architecture and vision. Today, we are speaking about architecture and how different functionalities can work within the same architecture. So this is, let's say, a strategic framework that we want to present you today. The Digital Product Passport Blueprint seen as a framework where we outline all different functionality you have seen. So that actually means that here we're showing you not the DPP 1.0 or 1.2, we're showing you the broader perspective of all functionalities that can be empowered through the digital product passport if we do connect upstream and downstream data to enable a cradle-to-cradle approach, so a 2.0 DPP architecture. If we look at what Carolynn has been outlined as a DPP 1.0, the focus is on the economic operator placing the product on the market. So the key functionality we're looking at are going to be all what concern the compliance, the regulatory compliance that the European Union will define as the data that will be communicated on the product. And we're going to have further session on that, potentially with GS1 and the different providers that are working not on the ATM architecture, but on the data content of the DPP for compliance purposes. And all what concern the customer trust attributes, so the unique identification of the item that is one of the key functionality to empower circularity and sustainability at scale. The DPP 1.5, as Carolynn was outlined, is all what concern not the downstream traceability, but what is about the upstream traceability. So actually collecting the data from all the different economic operators that make up the supply chain, even outside European borders. And here comes a different topic, which is not only working on the area of, let's say, impact, product impact, or material information to be disclosed on the product at time of purchase, but we are speaking about all what concern the procurement activity, the traceability activity, the operations activity that are strictly linked to the concept of operational excellence. Only once we're going to get to, let's say, the vision of the DPP 2.0, these two different words will converge together in one single architecture that will empower additional functionalities that can go also and include all what concern the digital innovation, the Web3, the blockchain, the NFT, metaverse vision, new business models. So the opportunities that can actually unveil the digital product the digital product passport are many different opportunities. And we want to take this moment to actually show you that when you hear the word DPP, doesn't mean actually nothing if you don't go actually in the detail of what the solution is doing. So what I want to do now is to introduce you Margaux from Certilogo, who's going to present you a specific case use they have been implemented through the DPP.
Thank you, Martina, and thank you all for being here with us. It's really a pleasure to be speaking with you about this topic. So thus far, we've looked at a lot of the DPP legislation, but now we're actually going to look at, as Martina said, so what actually happens when a product hits the market. And as we mentioned before, if brands only focus on compliance, they really miss out on the ability to connect with consumers through this secure communication channel. And we believe this channel is future-proof and it has to be protected from counterfeiters. We've talked a little bit about DPP legislation, but we also want to go into just briefly mention the EU's recent recommendation on counterfeiting. And as you can see here, brands will be incentivized to use innovative technology, including AI, to identify and intercept fake products that pollute the market. And then, of course, actively integrate these solutions to combat the diffusion of counterfeit products. And counterfeit-proof digital IDs are really a must to unlock DPP value. And in the use case that we'll be showing you today, you'll see why. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so just two words about Certilogo and why we're here today talking to you. So we are, we have almost 20 years of experience in the space. We were founded in 2006. We've worked with over 80 brands and connecting products. We have over 540 million connected products. And we are really passionate about the space, enabling brands to support their circularity journeys. And we recently launched a first iteration of a DPP, which we'll be showing you later. So next slide. Okay, so here's our first use case. So the industry challenge, of course. So one area that brands tend to focus on when they're implementing their digital product passport is the choice of the digital ID marker. Okay, so this is a crucial element of DPP implementation and one that, of course, has far-reaching implications. So in this case, we've identified a brand that thinks that the NFC chips are the optimal and secure digital marker, and they choose to embed them into their products. However, they don't necessarily consider all of the counterfeiting implications that can arise down the line. Next slide. Cool. Okay, so as you can see, the brand implements these NFC chips. Unfortunately, counterfeiters clone them, and here's what happens. So the NFC chips are a common ID marker that can be used. You probably have come across these in real life. They're often concealed within the product, in this case, in the tongue of the sneaker. And when they're tapped by the smartphone, they launch a digital journey. So in this slide specifically, the brand is using this technology. And you may not know that cloning these NFC chips is actually easier than cloning QR codes. And it can be done in less than 30 seconds. So unfortunately, what happens is the NFC chips get cloned by counterfeiters. And when it's cloned, there's actually no way for the brand or the customer to discern between the real and the counterfeit product. So consumers think they bought a real product, and they could resell it to other consumers unknowingly and effectively polluting an entire secondary market ecosystem. And then the brands are actually unable to track or intercept these clone journeys and alert their buyers that these products are fake. So in this situation, and we're going to ask you now to take a more interactive role in this webinar, the brand is going to be forced to make a decision. So we can go to the next slide and we can see the various options that are at play. So I think now the voting will be sent out to all the participants, and you can vote on what you think the brand should do in this situation. So don't be shy, your responses are anonymous and there's no grade at the end of this. Okay.
Unfortunately, I cannot vote.
Okay. But I think you know the answer, Marcia. Okay, should we take a look at the answer? Okay, so the brand understands that it's an unsecured implementation, and so they think, okay, well, after our NFC chips, let's use a one-time password NFC chip as a solution. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. In this case, it's important to realize that there's two types of NFC chips. There's normal NFC chips and there's one-time password NFC chips. So normally we see this, that the OTP or one-time password NFC chips are kind of the typical technological response to the issue of a cloned NFC, because brands think, okay, if an NFC chip is copyable, then using a more sophisticated one that has a one-time password, although it's more expensive, must be the solution. As it's impossible to clone one-time passwords, and the original NFC will confirm authenticity. So let's see what actually happens in a more real-life use case and within the market. So we can go to the next slide. Okay. So unfortunately for the brand, the one-time password NFC chips, they don't necessarily offer an added level of security, because technology without some sort of applied intelligence or a strategy and based on the realities of the market won't actually resolve the problem. So what happens is that the cloned OTP chip, when a user taps it, they encounter an error message and they get that the OTP is expired, maybe invites them to tap again. So this happens because an OTP NFC chip doesn't take account the original chip might be damaged, or that the connection might be slow, or that a technical issue might have prevented it from working properly. So the consumer is here after buying this product, kind of not understanding if it's real, if it's fake, if the actual password is just faulty. So this can also damage consumer trust, and they're thinking, okay, well, this solution doesn't actually work. So in this situation, how do we think a brand is going to react? So we can go to the next slide. And then we have another set of questions if you'd like to continue voting. So maybe you've seen these cases in real life. Take a minute to think about what you would actually do in this situation. Okay, should we see the answer? Okay, so if you answered this, then you answered correctly. Great job. Oh, wow. Okay, great. 79% of responders. Great. You guys have been paying attention. Great. Okay. So of course they prioritize the digital ID security and secure authentication. So the brand decides to invest in a new solution for their DPPs that safeguards against these risks and includes a fraud detection system that combats counterfeits and ensures digital authentication. So this is going to help them have secure DPPs, and then also, as we initially mentioned, work with the EU recommendation for counterfeiting, because that's something that brands will have to take into account in this integration. So we can go to the next slide. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about authentication, and now we're going to go through all of the tenets that really build consumer trust and help to solidify consumer trust within a DPP. So permanent and secure. So what does this mean? Permanent and reliable, excuse me. So basically this means that the tag for a DPP has to be secure and attached to a physical product, so that throughout this product's life cycle, wherever it ends up in the market, the data is continuously accessible and protected. Consumer-facing authentication. We just kind of went through these cases of a brand that didn't have this, and how damaging that can be. So consumer-facing authentication, you give consumers the ability to identify if a product is real or fake, and the authentication process is designed to combat real-world counterfeiting, and it's seamless and frictionless. Lifestyle tracking. So the data that's generated over the life cycle of a product is linked to a permanent ID. So without a permanent ID, brands actually aren't able to track the life cycle of the product, where it goes, all its various interactions, which is going to be crucial for brands to generate data, understand their customers, how the market is interacting with their products, if it's resold, if it's repaired. There's a huge wealth of knowledge that brands have access to through this lifestyle tracking. So it's very important. This is a part of their DPP implementation. Awareness and education. I mean, you're going to be investing a lot of time and effort into tracking and tracing the supply chain, the manufacturing details. And the DPP is an incredible opportunity to communicate the product's journey in an engaging way, and really communicate and connect with the market around circularity, sustainability, and all the processes that go into the product, and how to just prolong the life cycle and the journey of these products. Service accessibility. So consumers have to be given access to repair, reuse, recycle services through DPPs. As Carolyn mentioned before, enabling circular business models is a huge part of the DPP process. And it's something that, in building these DPPs, it's a major consideration. So warranty, another service that is absolutely crucial. It gives consumers the opportunity to resell their products, reputable repair services, and then of course customized content. So a DPP should be customized, it can be branded. The brand wants to use this as another communication channel, and it can be as personalized and tailored as they want. So these are just some of the main tenets that help, again, build and solidify consumer trust. So now, without further ado, you've heard a lot about DPPs, and then we have a special video to show you now on the first iteration of a DPP we built with Save the Duck. So as you can see, these are the various data points that you have access to when you scan one of their new spring summer 24 products. You have the certification information, information about the care and maintenance. And again, this is all attached to the product. So even if this product is resold, it's repaired, users can still have access to all of this information throughout this product's journey. Made in the manufacturing details, where it's come from geographically, fair work information, all of the various details that go into this product. So now you're seeing a a live version of what it can actually be. The authenticity check, which of course is huge. And then the recycling of the packaging as well. So each element, so the hanger, the hang tag, how all of this can be properly recycled based on the materials that has been used. And there you go. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our part. And now on to Massimo.
Thank you, Margaux. And thank you very much also for outlining the key aspects. We just went through one of the area of the digital product passport blueprint, the wheel you saw before, and we're going to go now on a different aspect. So if before on your overview, we were on the DPP, let's say 1.0, now we want to go a deep further in the DPP 1.5. So not only looking at this downstream data, but looking at upstream data collection and the traceability that need to come together with the digital product passport when we think about the traceability aspect that comes with it. So Massimo, I leave you the floor to introduce our next use case.
Yeah, it's a bit complex to be the last one after all this content, and I try to be extremely short and practical because we have, our time is running. But I would like, Martina, if you can go back to the previous slide, because actually there is something that I would like to highlight. As Carolynn introduced the concept that I completely love of 1.0, DPP 1.0 and DPP 2.0, I think that behind what is happening behind the DPP, it's something that we need somehow to consider. So that's why I would like to talk about that. But you can go back to, Martina, you can go back to the slide, to the next, to my first slide, please. And here we are.
We're going up and down as the chain of custody.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we imagine this is a flow, but in reality, you know, during the discussion, there is a lot of interesting aspect that is relevant and that we need to highlight. And another point to highlight, I think, is relative to the semantic interoperability. I think that the project of the Digital Product Passport Blueprint that we create together with Certilogo, with CIRPASS, and with For Sustainability and ID Factory, it's a first example on how systems and different providers can operate together with a common goal. And it's not only a point of technological integration, it's also a point of culture integration, social integration, mindset. I think it's a point of mindset that is something that I will highlight during the few minutes that we still have. The point is that behind the DPP, there is all the application of DPP is struggling with the same problem. Data acquisition, data quality, data verification, we have data digestion, then scalability, and once again, interoperability. So this, all the case applied of the Digital Product Passport, it's somehow facing with all these problems. And in reality, it's exactly how we approach the Digital Product Passport. So we didn't approach in ID Factory the Digital Product Passport as the solution, but we approach the supply chain transparency and traceability as a solution to enable further activity, such as the Digital Product Passport. And the work that we put together, I have to say that it's 1 year that we are working together with in this network in order to create a framework that can somehow guide the brand through a shift between a tactical approach to the Digital Product Passport to a strategic approach. And here is the case that I'm talking about. It's a case that really shows what I mean with that. Last year, several brands, I think that most of the guests that we have today faced with the AGEP regulation and consider what to do with the AGEP regulation. All brands somehow have to face with this French regulation. Well, there was some interpretation, there was complexity to collect the data, then some clarity, and often we can see that in the case we analyze in the market, almost 90% find a solution that is a fast solution, efficient solution, often using Excel, often using email, often calling the suppliers, and tactically they approach a problem, they find an efficient solution, fast solution, not expensive solution, and they solve the urgent problem. But what happened next? It happened that there is a new season, there is a new supply chain, there is new products, there is new data to collect, and this back and forth of email, Excel, file, data exchange keep running. But not only that, because beside the AGEP regulation, we are facing with dozens of new legislation. ULPFA, we have now a UDR, the anti-deforestation that I saw mentioned in the questions. There is new regulations that is always talking about the same thing: data collection, supply chain, traceability, transparency. And here we have to consider a misinformation that often the market it's allocating to the concept of traceability. Too often we see traceability as a collecting document or collecting information of suppliers. We believe that this is something more. Traceability is an approach that combine together operations, combine together sustainability, combine together procurement, quality, compliance, combine together all the different function into a brand and have an impact somehow in the full supply chain. And to consider the traceability of supply chain a topic that we need to approach for a sustainability perspective only, it's extremely a tactical approach instead of a strategic approach. And here it's, as I say, the case. If you can go to the next slide. Because when we have a case like that, we can approach it in all of this solution is a solution that makes sense. So we can collect data involving all the stakeholders and structure a way to collect primary data from the supply chain, or we can find a new solution for the new legislation, for the new requirement that fast and quick solution that solve the problem, or we can wait. We saw a lot of brands that was waiting to see if the penalty up to this legislation was how big it was in order to decide if wait or if do something. I think that here we have, yeah, I can see the questions. Obviously, there is not a right and wrong reply. But it seems that 79 get the point. In reality, it's extremely interesting to see this reply, because what we see in the market is not reflecting this type of approach. In the market, what we see, and we continuously see, is that there is a tactical approach from a single department for an urgent solution that sometimes is related to the compliance. In another moment is more related to authenticity, because there is something related to authenticity. So tactical approach that take the problem from one perspective, but without considering all elements together. Why we want to highlight this? Because we believe that the digital product passport somehow it's an enabler that need to consider a bigger strategic approach and has an impact in several aspects of the business, internal, upstream, downstream, and in different areas. We identified mainly 8 areas. Today we only show you 3 areas. What is related to the consumer trust, and here what is related to the future-proof compliance and operational excellence is together from our perspective, because we can't have a future-proof compliance approach if we don't have a structured approach on the operation. Sustainability, compliance, and operation, it's strictly linked one to the other, because we need to trace to have a better procurement results, to have a better time to market, to calculate the risk of my supply chain, to improve the quality of the product, improve the time to market, optimize cost, and at the same time be compliant with all the new regulation, and create a database of structure in a way that we can be ready, and we can be ready for a future-proof compliance. So we have to consider, when we talk about digital product passport, that it's a point that it's an approach that can leverage and must consider all what is running around, from business perspective, from vision perspective, and from compliance perspective. If you can go to the next. This is just a few examples of information that we can trace from operation activity, creating a real-time genealogy of the product that is not a result of the brand, of the legacy system of the brand, but is a result of what is happening daily into the supply chain. That we all know what is happening in the factory floor is always different than what is written into the brand systems. All this information, if it's into a system that, again, it's a system that can be can consider the interoperability as a structure of his base, well, we can then enable different output. If you can go to the next, we have a simple example of a case that a use case that we have in place with Hugo Boss, a brand that we can share, where during production, there is a unique code applied for quality control purpose on each single hide, but each single other component. Then during the production activity, scan and link to the finished product. And if you can go to the next slide, Martina. This relation, that is activity of quality control, of work in progress monitoring during the production, can together be a restructure to reply to compliance purpose. And here we have a digital product passport apply on each single product with structured data that can be scaled, because it's following production activity, and is following production activity during the process, not after the process, combining all this information with an output that can be relevant for the digital product passport, but also for other purposes. If you can go to the next. Yeah, I think it was my time was over, and I try to be extremely fast because we have a lot of questions. So I would like to try to take some questions.
Yes,
if possible.
let's start taking some questions from the audience. I think there's a lot of questions because it's a wide topic as well. I see also some of the questions that have been already replied directly. So I see the first question from Andreas Burmeister asking, what kind of information do you think must add to the DPP for the market surveillance? So as CS, DDD, EUDR, forced labor. So this is the broader topic of which information we need to put on the digital product passport. We saw with the Margaux, the information related to the authenticity. That's one kind of information you need to provide on the product. Massimo was outlining another example of information as the ones for the French market, importing products in the French market that required by the AJAC French legislation. I ask you all which all the information you want to highlight and where maybe the information are gonna be published.
I don't know if Carolynn want to add something on that, or
well, so CIRPASS did not work on the content of the DPP beyond an evaluation of the effort for gathering specific pieces of information. and the potential economic and sustainability value for downstream activities to enable circularity activities such as sorting, maintenance, reuse, repair, and refurbish, remanufacture, etc. So this is the type of study that we made. The actual content of each delegated act will be defined by the upcoming by the Commission in using their normal stakeholder engagement and feedback gathering processes, the same way that you can that they use to design all of the European legislation. And I strongly put in the chat several places in the answers that I'm trying to give. Several places a link to the ongoing study by the JRC for a delegated act for textiles. And this is where the textile industry should contribute their inputs on all the different aspects that will concern you. So, for example, the granularity of the DPP, the data carrier or data carriers, and the information content. And this is where you have the chance to influence the design of the DPP that will affect your sector.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, the short reply today is that this is under definition, and together we should work on that, trying to leverage our know-how of the industry and trying to offer value on this table to make it possible somehow. We know that there will be a relation with several areas, and this is quite clear. But on the type of information, the granularity of the information, the quality of the information, there is not yet a clear definition. But definitely, on the other side, I think that only my personal opinion, the roadmap that you show us, 2027, it's a short time. I mean, we have only 2.5 years to make it happen. And somehow we need, I think that the industry that is already doing need to start to collect data, probably not in the right moment, in the right way, probably not the right data in this moment, but at least try to connect with the supply chain in a way that we can create a network, an interoperability with our supply chain in a way that we can later on be ready when we have the clear definition of what is required from the DPP.
Even because if I can add on that, there are 3 different mainstream. So information need to be conveyed on the product level. Information will need to be conveyed at a company level. So the CIRPASS is one of those. And information that are linked to chain of custody. So we have these 3 different layers of information. The DPP can be a solution where all this information will converge, but not necessarily, because what we have seen from the French JAC regulation is that they make it mandatory to provide the information in an electronic way, but they don't make it mandatory to provide all the information required by the law through the same tool. So we are still in a divergent phase. We didn't get, let's say, even if, as Carolynn outlined, is our own personal definition of DPP 2.0, but we didn't got to the DPP 2.0. What is clear and what we want to stimulate today, it's a reflection on what should be the broader role of the DPP. So not just to be, let's say, a compliant regulatory tool for staying aligned with this regulation, but actually a tool to streamline the entire information data flow the companies are gathering for multiple purposes. Here I see people are endorsing the DPP as a solution also to engage and include information about the CSDD. A lot of questions about which should be the tag use. And Carolynn, thank you. You already replied to this question.
Yeah, I just a small addition to this, because I see that Paloma posted another question similar to this. So it must be understood that the Delegated acts will define which will be the mandatory data carrier or data carriers for each sector. So for example, for batteries, it will be a QR code that's engraved on the battery. Okay, that's for that sector. But we can understand that each sector will have specific requirements. But we have to understand that there's the minimum mandatory requirements. And then there's what the brands can do in addition to this, right? So if a brand sees value in additional data carriers or additional data, then this should be allowed. Or in deploying a DPP at a granularity level that is finer than what the delegated act requires. So suppose that the delegated act says that the DPP has to be issued at the batch level for a specific product category. Suppose, okay? But you see value in item level product identification. Suppose, and you want to issue your DPPs at item level granularity level, that this should be technically possible to do this. This is what we say to the Commission that should be possible, and then they're considering. Basically, what we're saying to the Commission is it should be as business friendly as possible. What brands want, they should be allowed to do as long as they comply with the regulatory requirements and needs of the DPP.
And I want you, as I see we're getting out of time, to leave the audience with a key takeaway, key suggestion, to advise them, if they've not been doing it, do it as fast as possible, because that's the next step you should take to get ready for 2027. Who wants to start?
May I make a small comment? Personally, I think that the DPP is just an additional service on many offerings that exist today from traceability solution providers. And it seems logical and natural that a solution provider that's helping you comply for CSCD, CSDDD, and supply chain visibility, and all of these things, they should be able to issue the DPP very simply at a low cost. It's just an additional service for their customers. And I think that there's going to be a lot of this. The DPP is just an add-on to this type of platform. And I just want to also say CIRPASS is not selling any platform, not deploying any solution. I think I was not clear in terms of the IT solution. I wish to have a DPP system that can make existing platforms interoperable. So CIRPASS is not selling anything, deploying anything. So I did, since the question came up, I think I was not clear when I spoke.
From our side, I would say from our side, this is something that can go beyond compliance. We've said it, but really just, build your DPP with the market in mind, with the consumers in mind, and with a holistic view of its potential and what it can be. And the roadmap we've showed is very helpful. I will say that. So keep that in mind. So thank you.
Yeah, I would like to I have two things that I'm thinking about. One is that what we understood in these years is that there is not today a solution, and probably there will be no solution that fit all. So we have to consider that there is not a perfect solution. So it's better start with something than wait for the perfect solution than to match everything, because probably we are still, as Martina say, in a divergent phase, but the time is running, and somehow we need to adopt a proactive approach to understand and to understand how we can be able to approach all these. So there is not one solution, people. It's my 1 cent.
I'm gonna thank you very much for your comments and feedbacks. I also want to give you my cent. I think that my suggestion is don't trust those that tell you that DPP and traceability is something easy and that is gonna take few months, because it takes time. You need to collect data. You need to make all the different players working on the same system to collect this data, and you need to make it scalable. So if someone tells you it's easy, just don't trust them. And given that personal feedback, I thank you all for participating to this session. Please feel free to sign up to our next traceability webinar. We're gonna go deeper on each legislation. The next one is gonna be the UFLPA, if I'm able to say it. The next one, oh no, gosh, too many letters. We're gonna get into the AJAC and the EUDR legislations afterwards. Thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank
Martina.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.